So let's move on to our next hot topic.
Truth, lies, shenanigans.
All right, Lizzie, you wanted to talk about what you termed Trump's Brown Brigade. Is this truth, lies, or
Brown
shenanigans?
shenanigans,
Shenanigans.
folks. Um, so looking at the crowd on Wednesday, the majority of the crowd, obviously Trump supporters, alt-right supporters, Proud Boy supporters, QAnon supporters, the majority of them were white Americans. They call themselves, some of them call themselves white supremacists, some of them call themselves white patriots. But there is, some brown folks out there who are Trump supporters, particularly brown celebrities. So if you think back to over the summer, you think back to early fall, pre-election, you had a lot of rappers who were coming out in support of Trump or talking about their affiliations with Trump. We're talking about Ice Cube, we're talking about Kanye, we're talking about Lil Wayne, 50 Cent, Kodak Jack or Black, however you say his name. And
It's Kodak Black.
these, oh, is Kodak Black?
I believe so.
I Kodak is a camera, so I don't affiliate anything else with Kodak but the camera. But I think Ice Cube was the loudest this fall with his affiliation with Trump because he came out in October and talked about his contract with Black America
Hmm.
and how he went to Trump's campaign. He went to the White House and presented them with his contract for Black America. And then he said they reached out to him and they wanted to collaborate. And so he boasted about how Donald Trump agreed to dedicate $500 billion and to this contract for Black America to better the Black community. So this was his comment because he caught a lot of slack for this. So this was his comment. Let me get this straight. I get the president of the United States to agree to put over a trillion, half a
Half a
trillion
trillion.
of first of all, it's not half a trillion, but actually it is 500 billion. Yes, it is of capital in the Black community without an endorsement. And N words are mad at me.
But
Have
it
a
was
nice life.
BS. But it was BS.
Have
Half
a
a
nice.
trillion dollars. It was BS because he wasn't putting it in. He was just saying that we're going to allow you guys. We're going to allow black people to have access to $500 billion. Finally, we should have had anyway.
Well, also, when has Trump really followed through on a lot of his promises, especially to minorities, women, the Black community, anyone that is not a Republican or that isn't a diehard Trump supporter? And so he got called out on that repeatedly. But also remember, Ice Cube, Kamala Harris sat down with other Black celebrities, including Snoop Dogg, including some other rappers and actors, invited Ice Cube. He didn't return her calls. He didn't go. He talked about Biden and how Biden, he, attempted to reach out to Biden, and Biden said, look, I'm trying to win an election. I don't know where I'm going to be after November 3rd. Why don't we wait until after the election and we could talk down and we can have a very civilized conversation about what the contract for Black America is and what our plan is? Because Biden also had a plan that he
Mhm.
came up with back in January. Okay, so all of this, I'm leading all of this to say, all of these people, Ice Cube, Lil Wayne came out and said, he was in support of Trump. Kanye has been saying, walking around wearing MAGA hats for over 2 years now. But ever since, the insurrection on Wednesday, we haven't heard anything from these guys.
Yep.
Even before the actual insurrection, even before Trump rioters came and stormed the Capitol, they've been very, very quiet about Trump's tantrums, about his rage, about his acts of sedition, about his, possible acts of treason, about him, saying that he's not going to leave the office, about him challenging the election. We've heard nothing from them.
Hmm.
So first, before I get to, okay, well, let's get to this. So we haven't heard anything from Ice Cube or any of these other folks about Trump and his atrocities. But Ice Cube tweeted this a couple of days ago after the insurrection. after it became apparent that the Capitol Hill police really was lacking in their security in trying to secure the Capitol. Showing up for work asking, what happened to the last security guard? So this is a picture of Ice Cube and his co-star from, I believe that's either Friday 2 or 3.
I think it's
Okay.
3.
So my question to the panel is, where was all that smoke that Ice Cube had for his bride over the fall, over the summer? And where's his concern for actual Americans? Because this is Washington, D.C. You know, Black people, Ice Cube, do live in Washington, D.C. Okay? So where was all of his concern for the Black people here who would be included in the contract for Black America? Let's start with Neo.
Okay. I'm so through with all of these Trumpers, including the Blacks for Trumpers. Like, I think O'Shea Jackson Sr. Was just, I think he thought he was doing something good. So I think he thought he was doing something good. This is more about ignorance, in my opinion, with him than anything else. He just doesn't understand how the politics of everything works. He doesn't understand. He really, I think he truly believes that Trump was giving the Black community $500 billion. Even if he were to reread through Trump's plan, I still don't think he gets it, to be honest with you. I think he still doesn't, even if he reads through it, he doesn't get it, that it wasn't about getting $500 billion. So I think there's some ignorance on his part. Lil Wayne he's been a fool for a while. And I know you were going to mention Candace Owens, but I mean, I'm not surprised they disappeared. I mean, all those Trumpers should disappear and go back into the shadows where they came from, in my opinion. Black, white, green, red, blue, I don't care. They all need to go back. So, I mean, that's my personal opinion. I'm just tired of hearing anything that has to do with Trump. Like I say, I don't have any problem with the other side being, say, Republicans, even conservatives. Everyone should have a right to their views. I have a problem specifically with people who support Trump, the racist ideologies, the fascistness. I mean, those are the things I personally have a problem with. So I'm through with all Trumpers. if any supporter of Trump, even in the beginning, I remember trying to specifically stay friends with Trumpers, hear their thoughts on things, have reasonable conversations on my Facebook page with them. And that was absolutely impossible. And it frustrated me to hell that I could not have reasonable conversations with these people. But I've talked a bit. Let me let Gianni Storm or Robbie Rock jump in. Gianni Storm, go ahead.
Yeah, sure. I feel like, Liz, that maybe they weren't truly supporters. Like I feel like there's no way you can truly be a supporter without having some type of racist, or I can't say that for a fact. But I will say I don't think I don't think that they were truly supporters. I feel like from the beginning, maybe like Neo said, it was a level of ignorance where Ice Cube does have this. I guess he feels like he can speak for the Black culture, so he feels like, okay, let me be a leader and speak to a leader,
Which
and
is narcissistic in itself, by the way.
exactly, because who asked you? But I think that they weren't true supporters from the beginning. So, and then also, Liz, I think they have a lot going on. Like, I like Kevin Thaxton's comment because he said Kim's busy, Kanye's busy, Kim's doing the real ex-wives of crazy rappers after they get divorced. So it's like, I feel like everybody's got a lot going on right now. And then also, they weren't true supporters. So when something hits the fan, it's like, they're gone. They
Yeah, because
weren't.
we didn't mention 50 Cent and and we
Yeah.
didn't mention Kanye.
So for 50, for his efforts, 50 tried to backtrack
Yeah, he did.
early on after he saw all the backlash. Kanye, I mean, Kanye has a lot going on. First of all, he and Kim don't even live together. He's not even raising his children. Kanye lives in Wyoming, she lives in California. But this idea that folks have a lot going on, so they can't, come out and say I was wrong or call Trump out on his bullshit. It's like, what happened to people multitasking? Like, everybody
Yeah, you've mentioned the word multitasking a while. That's true, though.
I do I do 1,000 things a day, as do you all. You know, Gianni's in school, she's modeling, she's doing all these things. Rob has a family, kids, he has grandkids, he works, he is a musician. I don't know what Neo does, but we all have a lot going on. And for Ice Cube, he's the one that tweeted that image from Friday. So if he's too busy to not say anything about Trump, then don't say anything at all. But don't act like, so now I'm going to come in and call out the Capitol Hill Police, the Capitol Police Department, when you haven't called out their leader. You haven't said anything about any of this. Rob?
Just his tweet, about showing up at work, we're the last guards. That when there's been a fatality, that just shows what kind of individual you're dealing with. Just completely out of touch with reality, no ability to read the room whatsoever. And I think that may have lended itself to the Trump support that we saw earlier on. Getting caught up in the momentum of what was going on. And of course, there's the tax hike scare that came with Biden's tax plan. So these are people with a lot of money who didn't want anyone dipping into their pots. So it's like, well, get on board with my boy Trump. But they're really not on board with the boy Trump. They're on board with their green.
Yeah, especially 50 Cent 50 Cent was all about money. I do think.
And he said so. Yeah.
He did say.
I think he was the only one that was honest enough to say that it was about money.
Yeah, he was.
I'm gonna call the rest out by saying that.
I think Ice Cube legitimately wanted to do something good for the Black community, though.
I do too.
And that's fine, but you have to educate yourself, especially when it comes
He
to
does
politics.
need to educate himself.
To finances and things like that, don't come at me with some stuff you wrote down on a piece of paper and tell me that, this.
I still don't think he understands what he wrote.
And let me make this clear. I read the contract for Black America.
I did too.
The actual contract is very in-depth. Much.
Oh, you read the whole thing?
I read the whole thing.
Wow.
It's much because I presented it in my class to my students.
Got it.
We had a whole lesson on Cube. We had a whole lesson on Ice Cube. But we also compared it to Trump's platinum plan, which was one page.
Mm-hmm.
One page. Okay? But even when Ice Cube talking about the contract with Black America, he didn't really understand a lot of the points that the contract was because he didn't make it up. He didn't write that contract.
He didn't.
He joined in on that contract.
Mm-hmm.
But he kept talking about specific types of Black people, particularly ADOS, that the contract was for. And it's just like, that's not what the contract says. The contract says the African American community. It does not specify where your mama was born, where your grandma was born, or anything. It said African American community, minorities, Black people.
ADOS means
American descendants of slaves. American descendants of slaves. So, and this is what I said to my students, who a good portion of my students are either from other countries, mostly in Africa or the Caribbean, or their parents are from other countries. And I said to them, so just keep in mind, Cube isn't talking about you with this contract with Black America. You are not ADOS. He's talking about American descendants of slaves, not y'all. And that's when they kind of got a clue, like, oh my God. But yeah, so Cube didn't really even understand the contract himself.
He didn't. There's no way he understood it. I don't know how he thought he could be a spokesperson without understanding it.
If you look at the contract, it's a great contract. I believe in a lot of the points and the suggestions that are made. But if you're going to, like you just said, Neo, if you're going to be an advocate, if you're going to get on TV boasting about, I got the president to agree with this and blah, blah, you got to know what you're talking about first.
All right, let's get to these comments online. So Mike Wolf, don't try to figure out what Kanye was thinking. There lies madness. Mike Winter refers to 50 cents as 50 pennies. Jacqueline Robinson, nobody came looking for Mr. Jackson. Kevin Thaxton says, even Tommy Lahren turned on the insurrectionists last week.
Oh.
Who is Tommy Lahren?
That
You know who I'm
that one
she's the
Twitter.
she's the
Oh,
blonde
Yeah.
girl talking a lot of
Yeah.
oh
nonsense.
yeah, yeah.
Mm.
I
All
think
right.
she and Cardi B got into it, and Cardi B snatched her edges. Like
Yeah.
it was funny for a minute.
It
I'm
was
not a Cardi
funny.
fan.
Jacqueline Fowler says you
It
will
was
hear nary a peep from them, especially when black voters were being disenfranchised. Mike Wolf says a lot of people have been quiet the last few days, and a lot of people should be quiet the last few days, actually.
And one more point that just to piggyback off of what Jacqueline Robinson, my sister, just said, the whole let's challenge all of these votes, these mail-in votes, those are predominantly black votes. And again, these black celebs have not said anything about that. Nary a word. So
Do we know that they're
I don't know.
predominantly black votes? I mean, do we
Yeah,
know that? Okay.
yes, in those particular states, in the state of Georgia,
Oh, okay.
and I think in
Yes.
Arizona, it's predominantly minority votes. I'm sorry, I should have made that clear. In those particular states that were being contested, those were predominantly
In
minority,
Michigan
i.e.,
and
background. Yeah, exactly,
okay.
exactly.
Kevin
Cool.
Thaxton said and military,
Oh,
adding on to what you
all right. Cool.
Well,
All
yeah,
right. Let's.
because mail-in voting has been a thing in the United States since the Civil War. This
Yeah, it's
is not
nothing
any
new. It was just expanded.
at all.
Yeah.
And even as of
Mhm.
January 20th, at least, I believe, at least 5 states in the United States, before this whole issue with Trump, 5 states, including the state of Colorado, had mail in balloting. Like that's what they did. That was a part of their process. It's not new, it's not anything new.
Nothing new. All right. Let's move on to our hot topic. Next hot topic.